Hi, Arno.
Good morning.
How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
We're good. You can hear us well?
Yeah, I can hear you great.
All right. I've just introduced a bit of the session. I'm going to turn the computer around so you can see everybody. Here we are.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Arno, we are excited to have you with us and to hear from you, so we're all yours.
Thanks a lot. I'm excited to join you this afternoon, and it's an incredible honor to be part of this day commemorating the Brighton bombing and to help Joe and Pat and everyone else involved transform suffering into something inspirational. I'm incredibly grateful. My name is Arno Michaelis. I'm a former white supremacist. Today I am an author and a speaker and an educator with an organization called Serve to Unite. And we also practice a curriculum called Youth Empowerment Seminar that teaches physiological stress management techniques as well as cognitive human values development as means of building peace with young people and old people alike. I became involved in this work in 2010 when I started speaking about my past as a white supremacist openly. My intention initially was to help people learn from my mistakes and hopefully not make those same mistakes. And as I shared more of my story and spent more time talking with people and probably more importantly listening to people, it really became apparent to me how important it is to make peace and the practice of peace a part of our daily lives. So today I'm very happy to do that work with Serve to Unite, where we involve students of all ethnicities from all walks of life and all backgrounds in service learning projects where we creatively and have a lot of fun bringing people together and getting out in the community to help each other and engaging our students with amazing peacemakers from around the world, like Joe, who is our global mentor for Fernwood Montessori. So our students are very familiar with Joe's story, and it's been an amazing thing for me to see how much they're inspired by the great work that you've done.
What were the underlying issues of why you became a white supremacist?
Yeah, if you could repeat it, Kai, that'd be great.
What were the underlying issues of why you became a white supremacist? And if I could perhaps, I'd throw on my own question to tail on that. What was it that helped you to change from that as well?
Sure. I've come to understand through doing peace building work that really all violence and all hatred is really rooted in isolation and suffering. And in my case, I didn't have relative to many other children on the face of this earth. I grew up in a pretty privileged environment. I lived in a nice house in a nice neighborhood. I never went hungry, never took a beating. My parents both loved me very much, and I was actually shown a lot of affection as a child, but there was a lot of emotional violence in my household as my father was an alcoholic and my parents' relationship with each other was really miserable. And I responded very poorly to that by lashing out at kids around me when I was a really young child. So I was a bully on the school bus in kindergarten, and in elementary school I started getting in fights in the schoolyard. And as I initially started lashing out just because of the suffering I was feeling, before long, I started getting a stimulation from that lashing out, where I got excitement out of it and an adrenaline rush, especially seeing how adults would be tearing their hair out about what I was doing. So it kind of transformed from just an expression of my suffering into kind of an adrenaline junkie type thing for causing problems. And it escalated as I grew, as just like any kind of substance abuse. What gets you off at first doesn't after a while, and you need to keep escalating things. So in middle school, I started doing vandalism, breaking and entering. In high school, I started drinking myself and doing a lot of drugs. I also got into punk rock, which I absolutely loved and still do. I appreciate it at a different level today, I think. I really see questioning authority as a positive thing, as well as thinking and doing things for yourself. But as a teenager, I saw punk as just sheer destruction and rebellion and lashing out, and that's really what attracted me to it. And so it kind of amplified the anger I felt, and it amplified the damage I was doing. And I really liked it also because in the late 80s, it was nowhere near as commonplace as it is today, and it tended to repulse people of the broader society, and that really attracted me to it also. So as a teenager, I was angry, bored, unchallenged, and in the habit of lashing out and repulsing people, which set me up for being attracted to the white power skinhead counterculture. If having a mohawk pisses people off, a swastika takes it to a whole nother level, and that's initially what really attracted me to get involved in white supremacist groups. And I think once I started radiating that hatred and violence and focused in the form of the swastika and neo-Nazi ideology, the world started reflecting it back to me in no uncertain terms. And it seemed to validate all the paranoid narrative behind the ideology. And I was involved in hate groups for 7 years. Within a few years, my best friend was shot and killed in a street fight. I had a number of other friends who were incarcerated. In 1992, I became a father. My girlfriend and I willfully conceived a child, as we felt it was our duty as white people to have white children. And unfortunately, just becoming a father in a biological sense didn't change me on the spot. It actually took a couple of years after that, when I had become a single parent after my girlfriend and I split up. Go figure, but when you practice hate and violence, it's not very conducive to a healthy romantic relationship. And after I became a single parent, a couple months later, another friend of mine was murdered in a street fight. And at that point, it struck me that if I didn't change my ways, death or prison was very likely to take me from my daughter. So those were the two kind of catalyst events that led me out of it. There were another number of other factors, though, that I believe were just as important, and some of those being the fact that while my parents had a lot of problems in their relationship as I was growing up, they never gave up on me, and they always let me know that I was their son, and they'd always love me, and that was really important in my turnaround. I think without that foundation of their support, I don't know that I could have made it. And another very important factor in my turnaround was the truth that during my 7-year involvement in hate groups, there was time after time when people who I was openly hostile to treated me with kindness. So I had Black and Latino coworkers who treated me as a human being, even after in some cases I told them flat out that I hated them just because of the color of their skin. I had a Jewish boss who, rather than fire me when I was wearing swastikas into his factory, he just said, he's a good kid. He's just going through a phase. I had a lesbian supervisor who even though I was a violent homophobe, she always talked to me, and she liked punk too, and she would kind of like connect with me on bands that I liked, and it really saw past the hostility and the misery that I was kind of outputting, and gave me a chance to be a human being as well. And unfortunately, those acts of kindness didn't change me on the spot. In fact, in some cases, I reacted by becoming even more violent, not necessarily to the people who were kind to me, but to other people after I left those situations. But each act of kindness did plant a seed in me, and I believe that those seeds all took root despite my best efforts to suppress them, and added to this growing sense of doubt and exhaustion in what I was doing as a white supremacist. And I really think that set the stage for me to make the right decision when that second murder happened in 1994, and leave hate groups rather than become more deeply involved, which was definitely a possibility. So every day I'm grateful that I no longer lead that life. I'm really grateful to be in a position to share my story, and I'm especially grateful that people listen to me. And I'm so thankful that all of you are here today to listen to me. When you listen to someone, it's an incredible gift, and I'm so fortunate that it's a gift I receive quite often and for a living, actually, because every time somebody listens to me, it helps me cultivate my own sense of inner peace. And when you have a strong foundation of inner peace yourself, that's when you're in a position to help others and to start making really important changes in the world around you.
Is there anything you would like to say to Arno? Or to ask him? I just want to create a space in case anyone who hasn't yet as well. Which is one hand back there and then up here, just so we can try and create space for everyone. Arno, did you hear that? There was a lot of "we love you" and "thank you."
I love you guys too. Thank you so much for being here. It's really amazing, and Joe has been such an incredible inspiration to me since we met in Dublin in 2011. Our lives change every day. We change every day. We age. The world's moving. Everything's in constant motion. But when we set out to really make a positive difference in other people's lives, we can change the course of people's lives, and that's what Joe did for me when we met in 2011. So I'm incredibly honored to be here on this special day, and I thank you all again for being here as well. And thanks to Joe and Pat.
Thanks. You mentioned at a young age that you got into sort of crime and stuff because it gave you a thrill. I just wanted to know that when you joined these sort of racist groups, did you genuinely sort of hate people with different colour skin to you, or was that just because you were taking it to an extreme that it was giving you more of a thrill?
Okay, I'm interested to know whether now when you meet say a black person or someone with someone who's not white, would you think about them and act towards them differently than if you had never been a racist?
Okay, yeah, those are both great questions. As far as the first one goes, I really believe that all hatred is kind of it's a symptom of a deeper malady. And so I wouldn't say that I hated people who weren't white and Jews and gays and things like that. I was hurting, and that hate like came out as a manifestation of my own suffering, and it just happened to be directed at, or in a white supremacist direction is a good way to put it. I've seen quite often, hatred can be directed at any target, and if you look at a left-wing extremist or a right-wing extremist or a violent jihadist. It's that hatred, while it may have technically different targets, it all kind of comes from the same place and it works in the same way. So I wasn't, a racist looking for other racists when I got involved. I was really just looking to lash out, and the narrative of white supremacy kind of gave me a framework for that. And also it was attractive to me because at the time I felt that the status quo of society was one of multiculturalism and was one of anti-racism. So I felt that I was being like a rebel by being a racist. So if I would have thought the opposite way, if I would have thought that racism was the status quo, I could have taken the opposite direction. For me, it was more of an act of being contrary than it was necessarily one of an intention of racism. So I think that's an important thing to understand, is that when we're looking to rebel, it's a very relative thing. Whatever you perceive as the power structure is what's going to get rebelled against, whether that perception is correct or not. As far as the second question goes, do I treat people that I used to target differently than I would normally? For many years I did, and I should, to give a proper timetable, I left hate groups in 1994, and within a year I went from being a white power skinhead to being a raver. So I was about as 180 degrees from being a white power skinhead as you could possibly be, going to all-night techno parties with people of every possible ethnicity and sexual orientation and gender affiliation, and I was really deeply involved in that scene for almost another decade. And when I first started going to those parties and hanging out, I really was freaked out to be around all these non-white people and around gay people especially. It was a shock to me, but it was a pleasant shock in the sense that it felt so good to let my guard down and to open myself up to all sorts of people who I would have shunned on sight only a couple years earlier. And so in that time, as I was kind of working that out, there was a period where I would be extra nice to black people and extra nice to gay people, just because I felt horrible for how I used to be and how I used to think. But then as I started to open myself more and soften myself and allow myself the leeway to make mistakes and to ask people things and to listen to people, it really it hit me that I wasn't doing anybody a favor by being extra nice to them because of their skin color. While it's better than hating them, it's still treating people differently. And I'm happy to say that today I really do a pretty good job of engaging people as human beings, and that's because I practice it. It's like anything else. When you practice seeing the humanity in people and seeing yourself in them, it becomes a more familiar way of being for you. And when you're familiar with engaging with other people's humanity, the things like the color of their skin or their sexual orientation or their religion or nationality, all those things don't matter as much in regards to how you treat them and how you value them. And it's not that you don't see those things, but it's that they actually become assets and they become things to celebrate. It's like I can start from this place where we're all human beings, and now the differences that I have with other people are really amazing things that I think are wonderful and that enrich my life.
Arno, on behalf of all of us, I think we just want to say thank you for being here with us today and for sharing your story and your experiences. I think it's been very powerful and inspiring for all of us. Thank you.
Thank all you. Thank you, Kai. Thank you, Joe and Pat. And I understand I'm following my brother Bjorn Eiler, and so you guys are kind of setting yourself up for disappointment by having me go after him. But I just want to give out a shout out to Bjorn as well. I love you, man. I love all you guys and everybody in the audience too. You guys are amazing, and yeah, there's my guy. Did you get a haircut? Or you just like, hey, what's up, Omar? Hey, stay hiding ass for me too. Great to see you guys. All right, love you guys, and thanks everybody in the audience. Great some peace today. Thank you.